Together, we will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys are having a lovely day. Wow, today is going to be a big election fraud special. Now, I know I promised you Harry Horry from Unite for Freedom was going to be here. He planned to be here, but unfortunately, he had an unforeseen complication. Something came up. It's personal. I'm not going to put his business out there, but he's not ditching me. He just can't do it today. So he's going to be joining us on Tuesday. But that's okay, because the business of exposing fraudulent elections never stops, does it, fam? We got a couple of announcements as well, a really sad one. I see a couple of people mentioning it in the chat. I also want to give a big shout out to one of my longtime supporters. First of all, Lou and Kathy, they've been watching the show since probably 2019. I always say thank you to Lou every month because he sends me a $10 check without fail. He's like the first person to always start sending me monthly donations through the mail like that. And so it always stuck with me. But today is Lou's 86th birthday. So I want to give a big shout out to Lou. Happy birthday, buddy. Thank you so much for being a longtime supporter of the show. And thank you to everybody who supports the show. I really appreciate you guys. I couldn't do it without you. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the thumbs up, hit the red pill, share the show, hit the hype button if you're on YouTube, and then sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn because, my friends, we're going to be right back after this. So new inflation numbers are out of Washington, and it shows that once again, inflation is on the rise. That's another threat to you, another threat to your savings account, and of course, also your retirement. So you got to ask yourself an honest question here. Does your dollar go as far today as it did 10 years ago? Well, what about 5 years ago, even last year? Then what does the next decade look like for you and your savings? Because if your portfolio lacks exposure to gold, one of history's most reliable economic hedges, it's about time to rethink your strategy. Because gold has kept up with inflation, and in many periods, it's actually outpaced it. My friends at Noble Gold Investments specialize in helping people protect their wealth using physical gold and silver. Whether you're going to roll over an IRA or make a direct purchase, their team walks you through the entire process and they make it super simple. There's no pressure, just education and experience. And right now, all new qualified accounts are going to receive a free 1/10 of an ounce America Gold Eagle as a thank you. To find out, you can visit noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78 and discover just how easy it is to protect your financial future. Once again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78. And when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, fam. Thank you so much for being here. I also do have another sponsor to open the show with, so please bear with me as I get that pulled up. As you all know, because we've talked about it and President Trump has said we're going to be celebrating it all year, this right now is a very special occasion, an auspicious time. We are coming up on America's 250th birthday. That's 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance that the world has ever seen. So right now is the perfect time to help your kids understand why this country matters, not just the easy stuff like the fireworks and the hot dogs and the apple pie and baseball, the story behind it all. And there's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday. It's obviously a very great way to introduce your kids to just how it was that America began. who those founding fathers were, what they risked, what the ideas were that they fought for, and why they're still relevant today. And this guide will send your kids back to that moment when those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well exactly what they were risking. They put their lives on the line. It's going to break it all down so your kids can learn about this in a way that's understandable, very fun, easy to enjoy. It's not going to water it down, make it sound like something it wasn't, or turn it into boring schoolwork. They're truly going to enjoy it. So if you care about raising kids who want to know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is going to be something you're going to want to grab for them. The best part, it is totally free. All you do is pay the $2 for shipping and handling. Small price to pay. So just head on over to freeusabirthday.com. That's freeusabirthday.com, and you can get the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday for your kids or grandkids today. America's story matters. Make sure that the next generation knows it. Thank you very much to them. Happy birthday to the United States of America, and happy birthday to Lou. Thank you so much, Lou, and also thank you to his wife, Kathy, as well. I was just reading your email, Kathy, and she said that they've been married for 40 years and they traveled around the country living in an RV, watching my show and going on the chans and researching everything that was happening. And I love hearing this stuff, you guys. I know that not everybody has the time to write letters, but I also got some other mail this week, and I needed to say thank you to them as well. Thank you so much to Margaret. Really appreciate you, Margaret. Oh, thank you to Laura Tucker and the Tucker family. Laura is another one of those people who always writes me letters without fail. I know every single year I'm going to get a couple of big, long letters from her telling me about her life and her kids and what's going on with them, the grandkids. Also, thank you very much to Queen Bee, who had sent a present for Lisa. Lisa doesn't know yet because, of course, she's in Ohio, and I haven't told her yet either. So once she gets here, I'm going to go ahead and allow her to open that. And I just hope that if you guys are out there and you have a story that you want to tell me, you feel free to go ahead and send it to me, because it kind of like sustains me, right? I mean, I know I get to talk to you guys in the chat. We get to hear about what's going on in the world and try to break it all down and figure out what's happening in this crazy world that we're living in right now. But it really does warm my heart when I get a message from you guys and telling me a little bit about maybe, how you found the show and, why you enjoy it, because it really does matter to me. It lets me know that I'm not just pissing in the wind, so to speak. All right. Thank you so much to Filter Dog 1. He says, I think this will be a very important show today. Filter Dog, you are absolutely correct. It's so important that I'm not even able to pull up some of the things that I had intended to pull up. My computer is acting very, very strange. There's some things specifically related to Riverside, California, that Patrick Byrne and the sheriff of Riverside County, Chad Bianco, who is also running for governor, wouldn't be my pick. But I think he's doing just fine as the sheriff. He's also had some problems. There was that whole issue with I think it was Lem Miller was the guy's name. They tried to say that Lem was going to be an attempted assassin of President Trump. It wasn't like that at all. They really just kind of jumped the gun. Maybe it was a misunderstanding, but what Sheriff Bianco seems to be doing right now is pretty good. And, of course, Patrick Byrne has not stopped talking about things related to the election since even before it all happened. So thank you to Sean Joe as well for the can. Also over here on Rumble, Cyrus the Great says, days are about to get longer. Chuck Norris used to push the planet along every morning when he did his push-ups. And Cyrus, I think that is the only way that I could introduce you guys to this next story. And for some reason, I am on the wrong window. So as you may have heard, it's really unfortunate. Chuck Norris, one of the greats, he has passed away, and he was 86. He was a relatively fit guy for being 86 years old. It does appear to be something that was not foreseen. What I read was that he died suddenly, but he was surrounded by family. Now, I don't know if that means that he died suddenly, he had the jab or something like that, or if it was just, like in a heart attack or perhaps a stroke. I mean, who knows? But he lived a good, long life, and he truly was an American patriot. One of the most legendary action stars that you could know. And the guy could fight. Okay, like there are some people out there who do action movies, like Steven Seagal. The guy's a blowhard. He doesn't know how to fight. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's the kind of person that walks onto a movie set and thinks everybody ought to be kissing his ass. Chuck Norris was the kind of guy who walked onto a movie set and who wanted to make sure that everybody else was okay. Like he was a truly nice person. So here is the announcement from the family's Instagram. It is with heavy hearts that our family shares the sudden passing of our beloved Chuck Norris yesterday morning. While we would like to keep the circumstances private, please know that he was surrounded by his family and was at peace. To the world, he was a martial artist, an actor, and a symbol of strength. To us, he was a devoted husband, a loving father, and a grandfather, an incredible brother, and the heart of our family. He lived his life with faith, purpose, and an unwavering commitment to the people that he loved. And through his work, discipline, and kindness, he inspired millions around the world, and he left a lasting impact on so many lives. While our hearts are broken, we are deeply grateful for the life he lived and for the unforgettable moments we were blessed to share with him. The love and support he received from fans around the world meant so much to him, and our family is truly thankful for it. To him, you were not just fans, you were his friends. We know many of you had heard about his recent hospitalization, and we are truly grateful for the prayers and support you sent his way. As we grieve this loss, we kindly ask for privacy for our family during this time. Thank you for loving him with us. With love, the Norris family. So, what do we know? Chuck was apparently visiting the Hawaiian island of Kauai when he had some form of an unspecified medical emergency. And everything happened in the last 24 hours. Now, if you're not familiar with Chuck Norris's career, I don't know how you could be. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. If you grew up in the 80s or you were an adult in the 80s, then you definitely knew who Chuck Norris was. I mean, heck, he fought Bruce freaking Lee. All right. I mean, like, this guy has been around for a long, long time. Obviously, Walker, Texas Ranger, Delta Force, missing in action. Bruce Lee fought Bruce Lee in The Way of the Dragon. And tell you what, why don't we go ahead and actually watch a portion of that legendary fight scene? All right. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit so that I can attempt to not get a copyright strike. And then I'm going to jump ahead. Look at the kitty. Look at the kitty. Here they are warming up. That's my favorite part, when he grabs his chest hair. Oh, what a good sport. What a... Not what you expected to see when you were watching the movie. I mean, but that was just too funny. Oh my God, I love that. Oh God, it was such a great movie. Oh, I used to absolutely obsess over those when I was younger. Bruce Lee was a legend too. All right, now he actually wrote an article for the Gateway Pundit on President Trump's reelection. And so he was America first, all right? He was one of those people who lived the way that he walked, and he definitely was a legend. So rest in peace, and I'm sure that his family will recover in time. All right, now take a look at this. This is another pretty sweet video from President Trump and the Prime Minister of Japan's visit yesterday. He took her on a walk through the Presidential Walk of Fame, and apparently she just lost it when she got to the photo of the Joe Biden auto pen. Like, she knew it was coming. She couldn't contain herself. Look at this.
It's not easy.
He was a Democrat before he was a Republican, like a lot of people. But when he became a Republican, he spoke out against the insanity of the Democrat Party. He said that, he had to walk away from the Democrat Party because they had strayed so far from anything related to what he believed. I mean, they basically turned their backs on America. They turned their backs on people. And the policies that they were pushing for were just absolutely insane. All right, so let's watch this. This is great.
It's not easy.
Thank you for inviting me to the White House today.
Thank you. It's not easy.
Thank you.
Oh, good God. President Trump is he's the greatest troll of all time. If I could only walk down that presidential walk of fame, get a picture of the Biden auto pen. Oh, it's too funny. All right. Now, President, you know, we're still dealing with the construction of the new ballroom that President Trump and a series of donors are paying for. I mean, that's like embroiled in court, just in case you didn't know. And one of the reasons that they've said, well, you shouldn't do this because, you know, the White House, oh, it's sacrosanct, right? I mean, like President Trump, you should not have any say in any renovations to the White House. How dare you? That building, it's got history, tradition. Well, President Trump on his Truth Social shared this video, which is like a time lapse of all of the different iterations that the White House has gone through. Multiple fires, multiple additions, multiple renovations. So here, let's go ahead and watch it because it's pretty sweet. Basically, from the time it was built until even into the future, and wait till you see what's coming. Oh, shucks, I'm going to have to refresh. Okay. Okay, go back to the beginning. Oh, the song! UFC octagon. Oh my God. I can't wait to see that go up on the lawn. The song is great. Oh my gosh. I love that song so much, because it's so foreboding, and it basically says, you know, what's coming is inevitable. Try as you may, you will not be successful. We will make America great again. We will finalize the construction of this ballroom, and there is nothing you can do about it. And your time is essentially done. Those who would fight to stop the progress that is coming. And this is progress that is good. This is not progress like the left wants. This is progress in a way that will honor and memorialize and beautify the White House and keep it going. This is just so good. Whoever is doing the social media at the White House, I'm sure they got a team, right? I mean, it's not just Dan Scavino anymore. Dan has got his own stuff that he's doing now. Did you guys know Dan got hacked the other day? I actually meant to check and see if Dan had gotten his account back, but somebody hacked him and he went and published something about some crypto coin. And I don't know if he's got his account back yet. Hold on. Which one was it? I think it was his personal account that got hacked. Okay. Yeah, so it looks like he's definitely got his personal account all good there. Let's go look at Dan Scavino 47. Yeah, so this one's good now too. Okay. So anyways, very, very cool. Very, very cool. That video is just so awesome. Intolerant leftists, I absolutely love your laugh. No matter what's going on, your laugh always makes me laugh. Good, bro. I'm glad I can bring some pleasure, because sometimes it's so dark and we've just got to, you know, obviously be able to trudge through it. Moon Baby, good to see you here for the news. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Moon Baby. I appreciate you. All right. So we were just talking the other day about James Comey's new video. It's very interesting for a number of reasons. I suggested at the time, James Comey is always talking about songs. It always seems like these are coded messages that are for somebody else. And the video comes out, and then immediately after that video, we learn that he's being subpoenaed, that he is now part of the grand conspiracy subpoena. So Svetlana Lakova, one of those people that was taken down as part of this grand conspiracy, she does a little breakdown, and I think she's got a really good take on Comey's secret comms. She says, as you know from my research and analysis, coup plotters communicate in code, and nothing is a coincidence when it comes to their plotting. So here is my latest analysis. 4 days ago, former FBI Director James Comey posted a video about Beyonce's songs Sandcastles. Why did he do it? Is he genuinely such a fan of Beyonce or Taylor Swift, as seen in his previous posts? Of course not. Oh, also, I need to say thank you to Will to Push Forward, who says, Zach, that sounds like a good idea to have for your show, a small segment of time to read out people who like to share their stories. I think that's a great idea, too. So you guys, I'm going to make a public request. I've already said you can, feel free to write me and tell me what's going on in your life and why you are watching the show. If you got any, information that you want to give me, obviously people send me tips and links and news stories all the time. But if you have a story that you want me to read to the audience, by all means, send it and let me know that's the case. All the time when I get these letters, I'm never sure if people want me to read them out loud. And so, if they're just, kind words about the show, I tend to do that. But if they're overly personal, I don't usually. So let me know if you want me to read your story on the air, and I'll be happy to do that. All right. So James Comey posted this video because it's highly likely that Comey prearranged with his co-conspirators, including Andy McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and others, that they should monitor his Instagram posts for important messages. Remember, when subjects are under investigation, they are typically instructed by their lawyers not to communicate directly with each other. Comey cannot simply meet Pete or Andy for coffee to coordinate strategies, such as how to lie to investigators. He could be questioned about how such contacts were made during depositions, or, as they might fear, they could be under surveillance. I believe they are all under surveillance. So this is the easiest and most simplest Occam's razor answer as far as I'm concerned. Or they might fear that they're under surveillance. After all, they spied on their opponents, so they assume the same is being done to them. FISA goes both ways, guys, goes both ways. And this is probably one of the only reasons that I would be okay with extending FISA at this point, because likely I believe it's being used against all of these people who were part of that grand conspiracy. So last year, I wrote about how Comey used similar Taylor Swift posts to signal his upcoming indictment. Search Lakova, Comey, Taylor Swift on X for my analysis. Now he's likely employing the same technique in response to grand jury subpoenas. We have thus established a working theory for why Comey is communicating this way, through Instagram stories about pop songs to signal his co-conspirators. We have also established why now, because he and the others are responding to subpoenas. Now to the substance of his communications. Comey claims that the FBI code names are random. Why does he need to do it? Comey and his company want us to believe that everything they did regarding President Trump was legitimate, perhaps with a few mistakes made by hardworking FBI personnel in response to Russia's interference in the U.S. election assisted by the Trump campaign, or the unprecedented attack on our nation on January 6th, or whatever narrative fits. But the evidence shows that Comey and his allies ran a long-term, premeditated, organized plot to overthrow the President of the United States. And the code names of the FBI investigations into Donald Trump form key evidence of this. Nothing is random or coincidental. Comey and company chose code names that reflect their shared goals. I have already explained how the Hillary email investigation was codenamed Mid-Year Exam because they intended to clear her by mid-2016, before she was anointed as the Democrat presidential candidate at the late July DNC convention. I also explained that Crossfire Hurricane refers to the Rolling Stones song from the movie Jumpin' Jack Flash, where the main character is a British spy fighting the Soviets. That's a clear nod to Christopher Steele in the fabricated Russian angle. Comey and his company must conceal this and pretend the code names are arbitrary. They cannot admit that the entire Hillary Clinton investigation was designed to result in her clearance by the mid-year mark, i.e. before the DNC convention. So the coup plotters also cannot admit that they used British spy Christopher Steele to launch the Trump investigation, knowing full well that Steele was paid by Hillary and the so-called Steele dossier was in fact written by Hillary's cronies and then laundered through Steele. No, the official story is that FBI's Trump-Russia investigation was opened because of a conversation between a junior Trump advisor, George Papadopoulos, and the Australian ambassador in a men's room in a London bar. Yes, it's a ridiculous story, but they have to stick to it. It shifts blame squarely onto the Trump campaign and Russia, not onto a premeditated coup orchestrated by the FBI, the Hillary campaign, British intelligence, the CIA, and the Obama administration. So they cannot admit that the Crossfire Hurricane codename refers to British spy Christopher Steele. As I've previously explained, it draws from the Rolling Stones song Jumpin' Jack Flash and its use in the movie of the same name, where a British agent fights Soviet threats, a clear parallel to Steele fabricating Russian dirt. The dossier was supposed to arrive after the investigation was already opened, not serve as the reason for launching it. Instead, they cling to the narrative that long after opening Crossfire Hurricane, they received independent corroboration from British intelligence. That's why Steele's FBI codename was Crown. Comey and company wanted to make it appear as though the information came straight from the British government itself, the Crown. No one could accuse the Queen of meddling in a U.S. election for partisan reasons. The story goes, Steele was simply helping an ally on official orders from his government. And that's exactly why they must stick to their story. The code names give the whole game away. Well, she put it very eloquently, and I love the background on Crossfire Hurricane. Never actually had put that one together with Christopher Steele and Jumpin' Jack Flash myself, but I think she's absolutely correct. So I think that undoubtedly James Comey is putting these posts out using pop songs as some type of a code to communicate with his co-conspirators, because there's absolutely no way they can get away with communicating. I think that they know that all of their tricks for covert communication have already been exposed, whether it's video games. Remember that one time James Comey did that interview with the New York Times and he had the Star Wars toys all around? We already knew that the CIA and various agencies were using video games and the chat function in video games to have private communications. Terrorists do it as well. So I think that they were using either a Star Wars game, or there was also a Star Wars website that was owned and operated by the Central Intelligence Agency that was only put on the internet so that spies out of the country could go to this website, use the message boards as a means to pass covert messages back and forth without being recognized and without putting it through email chain communications that could then later be looked at. Well, that's the thing, Rise Attire. We don't know what Sandcastles means yet, other than the fact that Sandcastles was the name of this investigation, and that FBI investigation has yet to be revealed to us. Perhaps that Sandcastles investigation will become public as part of the grand conspiracy investigation. It very likely could be a part of an investigation into some aspect of the grand conspiracy, an op in the grand conspiracy that we simply don't know about yet. And maybe its revelation to the public will be particularly damaging to James Comey or these other co-conspirators. Remember, he didn't say who was at that table. He didn't say if it was some of these co-conspirators. But given the fact that Andrew McCabe was his deputy director at the time, I would have to believe that he must have been there. And certainly the others who are likely going to be pulled into this investigation, they would also be there as well. Now, we already went over the fact that Comey was subpoenaed as part of the grand conspiracy investigation down here in Florida. And we know that one of the first people to be subpoenaed was former CIA Director John Brennan. But what I did not know was just how many people have been subpoenaed up until this point. Apparently, more than 130 subpoenas have been sent out, and this has been going on since last year. We only publicly learned about this investigation and this grand jury after the beginning of the year. Of course, there were rumors about it happening, but it wasn't made official until 2026. But knowing that 130 subpoenas have been sent out already, and this began in 2025, that is a huge amount of people. And it's exciting to me because the more people that need to testify and provide evidence, the more difficult it becomes for these people to carry the same story because we know that they're going to be inclined to lie. So these are probably all of the top targets from the Obama administration that you might admit. All of these officials who, even if they haven't come out publicly, they have privately said that they are being subjected to political persecution and warfare. This theory that we have, which I'm only calling a theory because it hasn't been proven in court yet, was that these officials under the Obama administration and then continuing into the Trump administration lied, they broke the law, they bent the rules, they perjured themselves, they used the system against President Trump and his people to attempt to prosecute, undermine his agenda, stonewall, and ultimately stop him from being elected in 2016, stop him from returning in 2020, and once again, the same, add in bankrupting him in 2024. So the Comey subpoena came out last week, and it relates to his alleged role in the drafting of that January 2017 intelligence community assessment regarding Russia's election interference that supposedly favored Trump. Now, this is the same as we had for John Brennan. Remember, Lisa Page has also been involved. Peter Strzok, he has also been one of those people who's been subpoenaed as well. I would say Andy McCabe is probably going to be on that list as well. This was the insurance policy that Andy McCabe and Lisa Strzok, the two lovers, spoke about. Now, we also here have a clip from John Solomon breaking down his takes on James Comey being subpoenaed, as well as the others. This grand conspiracy is a grand investigation that has not yet completed. This is probably happening and will continue happening for some time. So we have a lot of people who are being wrapped up. The more people, the more difficult it is to lie. The bigger the lie, the bigger the punishment.
All right, I'm interested in both, but I'm really interested in Comey first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, listen, they're tied together at the end of the day. What you're seeing in Miami with James Comey being treated as a witness and asked to come before the grand jury is, does he have evidence that the intelligence community was politicized in 2017 against Donald Trump? Remember, there's an intelligence community assessment done just as Barack Obama's leaving office. The FBI, 4 months into their Crossfire Hurricane investigation, can't find any proof that Donald Trump was a Russian stooge or a spy or doing anything to conspire with Russia. So they want to leave the Trump presidency in a difficult position by...
Yes, Angie, I know that we knew that the grand jury was coming, but it wasn't announced. We didn't have a jurisdiction. We didn't have the official information until January of this year. So we didn't know the full scope of it. We had suspicions about the key players, but 130, that number, this is the first time I've heard that number.
Coming out with an intelligence community assessment saying, we agree that Russia tried to help Donald Trump win the election. Now, most of the intelligence analysts in the committee disagreed with that. The only way they were able to get that in was getting the Steele dossier. James Comey's going to be asked, did John Brennan ask you to get him the Steele dossier? Were you working together with him to get the Steele dossier to be underlying the document? If that is his testimony, if that's what he ends up saying, John Brennan has claimed he didn't use the Steele dossier in that document and wasn't interested. It would be potentially the best evidence against John Brennan that he may have given false testimony to Congress. He denies that, but that's what they're looking at. That's a situation where it looks like the intelligence community put politics over country. Now,
one of many.
Fast forward to 2020, the very same issue is at hand. We now know that the intelligence community had an ombudsman, and this ombudsman looked at how the intelligence community assessed election meddling by foreign powers in the 2020 election. And what they found was that Russia and China did about the same amount of meddling in the 2020 election, but that the intelligence community decided to double down on Russia, i.e. the Trump narrative, and underplay and belittle the same evidence that showed that China was beginning to take active measures, like hacking in and getting.
Well, they all may lie, Claire, and if they do, then that makes things worse for them. Because the problem is that we have all of their communications, the communications that they thought they had successfully buried for all eternity. We also have people who are likely going to be leveraged against James Comey and the others. This is not an investigation that they're going to go soft on these people for. This is an investigation that will leverage the whole power and might of the Department of Justice. And because the investigation is happening down in Florida, the presentation of their perjurious testimony will undoubtedly result in indictments, will undoubtedly result in them being placed on trial. And undoubtedly, this is going to be a RICO investigation. This is going to be a RICO case. That's why it gets to span back so many years. And the grand conspiracy charging all of these people in the intelligence community, a variety of different intelligence agencies, will result in people being brought to justice, which is ultimately what we want. I'm counting on these people lying. Nobody tells the truth when they think they're going to go to prison for the rest of their lives. These people are going to fight tooth and nail, and it's going to cost them dearly in many different ways.
Data from our voter registration databases, doing some early influence campaigns, maybe sending some driver's licenses that could be used to file fake ballot registrations. What the ombudsman concluded was that political bias led the intelligence analysts to downplay and hide the China intelligence from the country, from the Congress, and possibly from the president. And specifically, the reason they knew of the bias is that their own communication said, I don't want to help that vulgarian in the Oval Office. That was one of the...
Yeah, PW-a-thon. The fact that it's in Florida, that's why I'm so confident about this. Okay, not only is it in Florida, not only do we have like a super prosecutor who's prosecuting the case, but we also have Judge Eileen Cannon. All right, Judge Eileen Cannon has already presided over cases related to this very conspiracy. She saw firsthand how the government was weaponized against President Trump. She is now going to be presiding over the case to bring the people who weaponized the government to justice. This is a dream scenario right here. If this case was going to be brought in Washington, D.C., I would have zero confidence about it. Absolutely none.
Analyst's communications to his fellow colleagues, clearly showing that they were willing to put politics over the intelligence interests of a president, a commander-in-chief, and a country. Both of these cases are really symbolic of the concern that our intelligence community became weaponized and politicized in that period from Obama to Biden.
Mrs. Wadley, I did not talk about Afro Man. I talked about Afro Man when the case was brought initially. I might as well give everybody an update. I know that it's everywhere, but essentially Afro Man, you guys all know Afro Man, because I got high, because I got high, because I got high. Someone in the town where he lives was trying to get off of some charges, and she told the local police that Afro Man had a sex dungeon where he had numerous people that he had kidnapped and they were restrained, that he was a drug kingpin, and that there were like pounds and pounds of drugs, and there was a whole bunch of money there along with these people that had been kidnapped. So the police overzealously got a warrant. They went to his house. They broke his gate. They broke down his door. They went inside, and they essentially they took money because that was the only thing they found. They found, like, I want to say it was like $5,400 or something like that. And Afro Man's assertion was that he knew exactly how much money was there. They only recorded $5,000, and he said, "You stole $400 from me. I want my $400 back." They refused. They said, "No, we didn't count wrong. You didn't have $5,400. So he made a series of music videos. You should probably go to his YouTube channel and watch the videos. They're all hilarious. He made a series of YouTube videos diving into the backgrounds of each and every one of the police officers that were there at the raid, and he accused them of various things that they had done over the years. One of them had like some type of sex offender charge. I don't know exactly what it was. He called another one a lesbian. He called another cop Officer Pound Cake because he had a pound cake that was on his counter, and when the officer came in, he like did a double take and he looked at it like he wanted a piece. I don't know if he actually took a piece. Anyways, the police sued him for defamation because he used his own security camera footage of them coming in and basically breaking up his house when he had done nothing wrong. And I'm sure that they probably could have, like, you know, tried to reach out to him ahead of time, but they wanted a big bust. Anyways, their bust was a bust. And they sued him. His contention was that this is America. This is the First Amendment. Parody is well established in song. My language may have been coarse, but I am a rapper, and in rap and hip hop, this is how people talk. He also said in another song that he had slept with this officer's wife, and the officer was asked about it on the stand, and he basically he said that he had been defamed by saying that his wife had slept with Afro Man. And he was like, "Well, did your wife sleep with Afro Man?" And he was like, "I don't know. Maybe she did." I couldn't believe it. It was the craziest thing. Anyways, all of the officers lost their case against Afro Man. Afro Man was victorious. It was clearly a First Amendment issue, and they were trying to go for a payday. So big win for the First Amendment, big win for Afro Man. And hopefully the cops will pay him back for breaking his property, but probably not. Yes, and he wore the American, he's in every one of the videos, he's got a suit that's covered in American flags, and he's got glasses on with American flags on him. And he wore that suit to court, and it's a riot. If you watch some of the clips from the trial, it's pretty good, but definitely watch the videos. They're pretty funny. All right. Now, a little bit more information here. This is a 13-minute segment. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I'm going to go over this, but we played just a 20-second clip yesterday when MS Now first learned that James Comey had been subpoenaed, and they were, a little bit stunned by the whole thing. But they produced this fairly lengthy segment that really shows you just how concerned they are about the fact that James Comey has been subpoenaed, probably for all the reasons that I mentioned to you. They all know just how bad this is. They were all complicit in this grand conspiracy. Their plausible deniability is that they're the press, right? They're just repeating essentially what they're being told by secret sources in the administration or in the intelligence community. Of course, they want all of that stuff about Donald Trump to be true, even though it wasn't. And who knows, maybe a number of them have been subpoenaed as well. But they do admit that President Barack Obama was directly involved in the grand conspiracy. They said that they described former President Barack Obama as being very much in their sights as part of this investigation. That is particularly interesting because any actions that Obama would have taken during the administration, if it was during the course of his duties as president that had something to do with running the country, he would have immunity. And prior to the deep state trying to strip President Trump of his immunity, Barack Obama would have been fine. But it's now being established in court that if you are the president and you do something illegal that isn't in furtherance of your job as president, you can actually be held criminally accountable for that. So Barack Obama and his people, they're all criminally liable for the actions they took, which is why I think that MS Now is so nervous about this. Also, Andrew Weissman was interviewed in this this segment there, and he was asked about what this grand jury means and the fact that it's ongoing. Essentially, like they were giving him an opportunity to comment on the fact that this is likely a RICO case, but he doesn't want to go there. But he says there's something that happened in Florida, and that's sort of the only thing I can think of that you would be able to tie it to Florida. Now, of course, there was something that happened in Florida. They went and raided President Trump's house in an attempt to get information that was criminally damning for them. And the reason that this is all connected is because it's a RICO case. He says, but remember, this is a case where a federal judge signed off on that search, a federal judge that was also connected to Jeffrey freaking Epstein, if y'all remember. And even Judge Cannon, I believe, in connection with motions there, rejected the idea that the defendant who made the claim that it was sort of selective or vindictive prosecution. So I'm not really sure how they're going to claim that. Well, we have over a decade of established actions having been taken all the way back to the Biden administration, to the Obama administration. So if you watch this, you'll understand what's going on in Florida, that really this dies back to so much, and everyone at MS Now is aware of it, but they can't say it. They can't admit that this is a RICO investigation, and they can't admit that what was done to the president has led to this moment right here. Let's just hear the panic in Nicole's voice real quick.
News that has broken since we've been on the air. Axios reporting that former director of the FBI, Jim Comey, has been subpoenaed in a wide-ranging grand conspiracy case against the ex-officials who investigated and some who would go on to prosecute Donald Trump. That's according to two sources with knowledge of that situation. The subpoena for Jim Comey was reportedly issued last week and relates to his alleged role in the drafting of a January 2017 intelligence community assessment concerning Russia's election interference that favored Donald Trump. This so-called grand conspiracy case is based in the Southern District of Florida, and it relies on the belief that officials who worked for President Barack Obama and later Joe Biden broke the law back then before they knew who would win the 2016 election to try to undermine Donald Trump from his 2016 election through his federal indictments in 2023. It sounds bat bleep crazy, but it's really happening. I want to bring in New York Times Justice Department reporter Glenn Thrush. He's reported extensively on
Andrew Weissman likely would be part of this investigation as well. Now, we don't know if he's been subpoenaed yet, but I would have to imagine that hasn't quite happened. But we're not going to watch this entire thing. But the fact that they've brought Andrew Weissman in, certainly he's a contributor at MS Now. And he, of course, is going to attempt to soft pedal anything that might be happening down here in Florida. But the idea that something happened in Florida, well, no shit. Something did happen in Florida, and it's directly connected to the grand conspiracy. All right. Now, now we are going to go through a lengthy thread from Peter Bernegger. This is from the title of the show, Dominion, DARPA, and the Steal of the Century. Now, Peter has added quite a bit of information to this thread since I first saw him posting this yesterday. But it ties directly into the theft of the 2020 election and the Durham investigation. So it also ties in what the Dominion voting systems. It ties in the information from Patrick Byrne. So first of all, there has been a lot of stuff that has now come out as a result of Patrick Byrne and Eric Coomer's cases against each other. You know that Eric Coomer had previously admitted that Dominion had remote access to election equipment here in the United States. That was live during elections. It included access to the vote tallies as it was coming in. We now know with certainty that there was VPN access that was used within the United States. It was also being sent to their headquarters in Serbia. They had previously denied that the Serbian location existed. Once Dominion Voting Systems was purchased, they publicly shut down the Serbian arm of Dominion Voting Systems. Now, here is a letter to the President of the United States from Thomas Joseph Carroll. He's an attorney involved in this case. Sent on March 16th. Dear Mr. President, on June 4th, 2023, the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis convened a grand jury and presented false testimony from Dominion's Director of Product and Security, Mr. Eric Coomer. Mr. Coomer has a background as a nuclear physicist and represents that he is a former skinhead and heroin addict. A grand juror asked Eric Coomer if he rigged the 2020 election, and Coomer responded that he did not have access nor the ability to do so. I have reviewed a redacted version of a transcript from the deposition of Eric Coomer taken on January 27th, 2026. Coomer's testimony before the Georgia grand jury was a lie. More than 5.5 years after the 2020 election, Coomer admitted that Dominion had remote access to the election equipment in the United States live during elections, including access to the tally. I am requesting that the Department of Justice review the perjured testimony under oath of Eric Coomer on June 14th, 2023, that resulted in an indictment of a former United States president. Moreover, I am requesting that the Department of War, Department of Homeland Security, and the Director of National Intelligence investigate the VPN access implemented long ago and utilized by Dominion for the 2020 election. The VPN access was used within the United States and internationally by Serbians. Therefore, the United States elections are vulnerable to China and obviously ties into the Just the News China information that's just come out or other foreign interference in our elections. The U.S. Elections Assistance Commission has numerous Obama holdovers and has recently recertified Smartmatic after the company was indicted by the Department of Justice and certified Dominion's new shell Liberty Vote. Lastly, I am requesting that the EAC holdovers with expired terms be replaced. I highly recommend Patrick Kolbeck and Jonathan R. Miller III for these positions. Now, I can only hope that the president has received this letter, because every single one of those people that had a presence in the 2020 election or any earlier than that, maintaining a presence in our elections to this day, is highly, highly dangerous. Now, in these emails between Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's office and Georgia IT cyber experts, they found something incredible while they were accessing their voting system. It was actually accessing their voting systems. In this email, you have Angelos Karamatias at Georgia Tech writing an email October 21st, 2020. And he says, oh shit, these look like egress points. And then he says, let me check something. And he says, it's Dominion voting. Dominion voting was accessing Georgia's election equipment, and they discovered it on October 21st, right here. An egress point is the place in a computer network where data leaves to go somewhere else, like the internet. Now, remember, back then we were told that this was something that couldn't happen. This is an email that's available on the public record that you can find right now. Continuing, Peter Brunegger has also tied this in with Fort Wahacha in Arizona. That has come up recently because of the dust-up with Erica Kirk and Candace Owens. But the U.S. Army at Fort Wahacha in Arizona was inside a county's Dominion voting systems, Dominion voting election management system. There was a former person stationed there, and apparently they turned white as a ghost when they found what Peter Brunegger and his people found in Dominion's files. And that person confirmed what we found. It was posted on March 7th of 2025 in 2 tweets. Tweet number 1 was that the Pennsylvania attorneys had written a letter about Dominion and posted it on March 17th. Tweet number 2 is that egress email with that red rectangles that we just went over. Now, here are some of the people and entities that will be exposed as part of this story posted by Peter. At Georgia Tech, a number of these names are familiar because they came up as a big part of the Durham investigation. Manos Antonakakis, he was an associate professor at the Georgia Institute of Technology. He was the co-director of CoEUS Cyber Center. He ran active reconnaissance jobs on election networks for DARPA. Angelos Karatamaias, he was a professor also at Georgia Tech, also the co-director of CoEUS. He discussed whether or not voting machines were pinging back while deployed on Election Day. DARPA, a man by the name of Ian Crone, he was a program manager at DARPA, and he approved monitoring of the USPS swing state networks, and he confirmed his team was monitoring actual election networks. DARPA was actively monitoring networks at the time. Christopher Schneck, also a contractor at DARPA, he wrote a directive, collect a week's worth of data from the egress point. The egress point that Dominion Voting Systems was siphoning information out of. He was also a liaison between the U.S. Army and Georgia Tech. And then Anna Rubenstein, also a DARPA contractor, she was CC'd on a number of email chains discussing the coordinated election network monitoring. Allison Klein, also at DARPA, she was a recipient of the Sunburst Solar Winds opaque targeting email from Antonakakis. Solar Winds, there was also a major Solar Winds hack from a couple of years ago that we covered. CISA and DHS, Jeffrey Ensley was an employee at CISA. He actually organized the joint DARPA-CISA ISAC technical coordination call that was made on March 30th of 2020. And all of these people were present on that call, employees of CISA. Ethan Bowen, David Howard, David Stern, Jeffrey Rabinowitz, David Deingart, Jillian Rucker, Brandon Say, Anika Shagrin, and Jill Hagrin. She was also a contractor at CISA, and she bridged the federal cybersecurity and state election infrastructure monitoring. MS ISAC, that is a cybersecurity. Marissa Atkinson, she was on that exact same DARPA-CISA coordination call. They were talking about monitoring state and local election networks nationwide. Matthew Greco, also on the call. Faith Lawless, also on the call. And then U.S. Army Cybercom at Fort Gordon, part of CENTCOM. Captain Brian K. Severson, he was the U.S. Army Cyber Protection Brigade at Fort Gordon. He requested the briefing report from the CENTCOM network owners. His request triggered that egress report directive from DARPA. Captain Sean Iyer, also on the U.S. Army Cyber Protection Brigade at Fort Gordon. He was CC'd on that same email. This is showing a pattern of communication and knowledge of the insecurity in the Dominion equipment, that Dominion was siphoning information directly from Georgia's election system. Also, Captain Antonia Pfeffer at U.S. Cyber Protection Brigade, also on the email. And then New Star and Sunburst Connection. This is where Rodney Jaffe comes in. Rodney Jaffe is a name from the very beginning of Trump's administration. He was involved in a series of issues trying to set President Trump up as a Russian agent. He was the senior vice president of New Star. He was also on this Sunburst email from March of 2021. He was identified in the Durham report as providing the DNS data to political operatives during the 2016 and 2020 elections. From 2016 to 2020, Jaffe oversaw projects analyzing DNS logs for unusual patterns, supposedly linking the Trump Organization and Alpha Bank, which were shared with intermediaries like attorney Michael Sussman for evaluation by the FBI and the CIA. And of course, who can forget Dominion Voting Systems, the very platform that Georgia uses to process their elections. Eric Coomer at that time, he's now the former VP of Product Strategy and Security. He is also the developer on a predecessor system, Sequoia and WinEd's election software. He's also admitted under oath that foreign nations had remote access to internal Dominion networks. The Durham report listed Jaffe as Tech Executive 1, and that is a picture of Rodney Jaffe right there. All right. Now, it turns out also that a Dominion voting tablet was shipped through Shanghai, China customs. Chinese engineers, as a result of that, had direct server access to firmware files for American voting systems. And the Dominion manager overseeing all of that was someone that was employed by Dominion in Belgrade, Serbia. His name was Jordi Macevic. He was the manager of software development. This is not a theory. This is a confidential internal Dominion document that proves it. And this was produced by attorney Stephanie Lambert in the active federal lawsuit, Dominion Voting Systems versus Patrick Byrne. Stephanie Lambert is the lawyer from Michigan who is working with DARLeaf. If you'll remember, a couple of years ago, DARLeaf was attempting to sound the alarm about foreign access to our elections, and specifically mentioned was Serbia, and through the vector of Dominion Voting Systems. And we can actually see this information right here. This is the letterhead for Jordi Macevic, the manager of software development at Dominion in Serbia. And here is Yu Chun Liu, who is discussing the sending of that tablet. Meanwhile, the tablet arrives at Shanghai Customs. We are waiting for customs clearance now, expecting next week to get the tablet, which is proof positive that American election infrastructure was shipped directly into China. That would have given them everything they needed to gain access to this stuff remotely, because we also know that the remote access was present. Saberdo says, not trying to be a jerk, just wants you to know the base in Arizona is pronounced Fort Huachuca. Yes, Fort Huachuca. Great shows all week. Love you and appreciate Lisa. You're not a jerk. I know that I don't pronounce it correctly. Fort Huachuca. Fort Huachuca. Okay, got two of you telling me. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. All right, so 13 days before the 2020 election, there was two Georgia Institute of Technology's professors. They were working under a DARPA agency contract. They were actively scanning voting machine manufacturer networks to find out if the machines were pinging back to outside servers while votes were being cast. Those two we've already named. Professor Karamitis wrote, but if the voting machines do ping back and are online while deployed and in use, that makes them interesting, makes them a lot more than interesting. And then Professor Ananikakis replies, already running an active reconnaissance job. We will know soon. That was October 21st, 2020, 13 days before the 2020 election. And you can see that in the email right there. So now jump a little bit further back, 40 days before the 2020 election. The Georgia Institute of Technology professor, also under a DARPA contract, emailed his his DARPA handler with a new target, which was the United States Postal Service. Professor Ananikakis wrote, I would down-select USPS service networks in swing states. DARPA replies and says, that's an awesome idea. Ananikakis then confirmed, I will spend a few hours to try to find their networks. If I find any networks, I will run a couple of jobs to see if we can even witness any traffic. This university professor scanning federal government postal networks in swing states 40 days before the election with the DARPA blessing. So, of course, you have to ask the question, who authorized this? Who ordered this? Who saw the results? We've already got connections to a number of deep state characters. So that same DARPA professor, the same Georgia Institute of Technology professor under the DARPA contract writes this email We have more than enough evidence of what looks to be Russian and Iranian command and control activities from state, local, tribal, and territorial government networks that we have analysis that potentially makes them election-related. That same professor, a few days later, there is a group that has successfully penetrated these networks. The DARPA program manager, Ian Crone, confirmed in writing that they were analyzing actual election networks. What was his response when he was briefed on the penetration? He said, I think their muted response was because they were a little dazed. So the people then confirmed that we had DARPA involved, we had CISA involved, we had the Department of Homeland Security involved, we had the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. That's the organization that monitors every single state and local election network in America. So at that time, allegedly, they were aware that Russia and Iran were somehow inside networks tied to our elections. Every single one of these agencies knew. It was never publicized. They simply allowed it to happen. If I had to guess, it would probably be because they were also aware that there were others who were directly piped into our elections as well. And they wanted to ensure that that access remained. If they were to suddenly raise the alarm about a foreign actor gaining access to American election systems, well, then that might necessitate the shutting down of those election systems and going to something secure like paper ballots. But one name connects everything talked about in this thread so far to the highest ranks of American politics, and that name is Rodney Joffe. Rodney Joffe, again, was Tech Executive 1 in the Durham report. And Durham found that Joffe directed the harvesting of DNS data. That's the internet traffic logs belonging to a presidential candidate, which was, of course, President Trump at Trump Tower. And Executive Office of the President was also harvested for DNS. And then that data was fed to political operatives. Those operatives took that data to the FBI and the Central Intelligence Agency so that they could construct a false intelligence narrative against a sitting president. The same Rodney Joffe was secretly blind copied on a Georgia Institute of Technology professor's email discussing the opaque targeting analysis of election-related network surveillance data that was intended for the Department of Defense. This is the same tool that they used to spy on President Trump. The same man, the same tool, the same players. Now, connected to DARPA, they were funding surveillance on American election infrastructure. So they were previously saying, because Georgia Tech was involved, that this was merely academic research. That's how they were able to get this information. But it was anything but. This was a sanctioned deep state operation using the cover of a Georgia technical college so that they could successfully spy on President Trump and then take whatever information they were able to glean and then use it against him. But we don't know who tasked them. We don't know who received the analysis. I think we can reasonably assume why they did it. But there is some information that we can glean from this. So there was a weapon that was built at the Georgia Institute of Technology called Pythia that was also funded by DARPA. So we actually have the DARPA internal planning document for this tool. A working agenda was sent to DARPA contractor Christopher Schneck, also to Professor Antonakakis on February 26th of 2020. That was 8 months before the election. Here in this planning document, we can see deploying active domain name system Pythia, Defense Digital Service, Department of Homeland Security, wants to be able to run reverse mode and find unknowns. What does that mean? Pythia was being embedded inside the Department of Homeland Security, which was, of course, the very agency responsible for declaring our elections secure, with the specific goal of running reverse mode. This is what reverse mode does. You pick a target network, say a voting machine company, and then once you're inside the network and the documents confirm Pythia was deployed inside the Department of Homeland Security by February of 2020, Pythia then maps every single connection on the network, whether it's public or private, internal or external. There is nothing that can be hidden from it. It tells who is accessing the network. It tells where they're accessing. It tells exactly the time, tells the pathway, There's no way you can encrypt the traffic to disguise yourself. There's no firewall that can block it because Pythia operates at the domain system layer, the foundational address system that every internet-connected device must use to function. DNS records are the basic underlying route that you are taking to connect to anything. So these are some of the things that DARPA listed as targets for this reverse mode use of Pythia. Voting machine manufacturers, Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company, the Department of State, the National Security Agency leaked report, and the state of Georgia listed on its own. All of this, DARPA was planning to document and map. And it was all done in the short 8 months before we voted. And U.S. Army soldiers were trained on this weapon on Georgia Tech's campus. One of those soldiers wrote to Professor Antonikakis after his training, and he said, "Thanks for hosting the Pythia training a couple of weeks ago. It was very interesting seeing this tool in action." The Army unit's motto was "Pierce the Shadows." Captain Severson's email signature contained the 2nd Battalion Cyber Protection Brigade motto, "Pierce the Shadows." It's written right there in the document. In ancient Greece, Pythia was the Oracle of Delphi. So this allowed them to essentially look into and reveal everything that was happening on these networks. Incredible, incredible stuff. So Peter also shares the document that proves it was all planned and the working agenda, which describes exactly what Pythia was doing. This is a little thick up here, so we'll go into it. This is what is listed. The reverse mode on networks, Delphi. Delphi is the Georgia Tech surveillance platform, and reverse mode, again, means to pick a network target and map every single connection going in and out. Voting machine manufacturers, obviously, Dominion Voting Systems, election systems and software, Hart InterCivic, the companies that make the election systems that count your vote. These were targeted for reverse mode network surveillance. Burisma, this one is particularly interesting given the Biden family's connection to it. And of course, it's the Ukrainian energy company at the center of the Biden crime family controversy being looked at by DARPA on the exact same list where they were planning to view the traffic from voting machine manufacturers. The Department of State, that is obviously a very sensitive target. National Security Agency, an actual National Security Agency intelligence leak was being analyzed by a university professor under a DARPA contract. Why was Rodney Jaffe the man for that job? Reverse Pythia on Internet Protocol version 4, running Pythia's reverse surveillance mode across the entire public internet. Every single device, every connection simultaneously being mapped by the professors at the Georgia Tech campus. For the state of Georgia, Georgia gets its own separate line. They were not running under the Russian threat label, not under enhanced attribution. They were running under Georgia Tech's own funded effort, meaning they were operating outside of the standard DARPA program oversight entirely. They probably should not have been doing that. They were also looking at Chase, JP Morgan Chase Bank. They were being monitored under the same program as the voting machine manufacturers. So they deployed the active domain name system Pythia, total internet surveillance weapon, the Defense Digital Service, which was the Pentagon's own internal technology unit as well. The Center for Internet Security at the Department of Homeland Security, that's the federal agency responsible for protecting election infrastructure, and the same agency that later declared supposedly the election was the most secure in history in 2020, which is solid evidence by nature of all of this information that Chris Krebs was completely lying. They said in this communication that they want to be able to run reverse mode and find unknowns. They want to know what's required. Well, the Department of Homeland Security wanted Pythia's reverse surveillance capability deployed within their own walls, and they were asking Georgia Tech what it would take. They were also looking to see if the Russians were hacking into our elections. The Cyber National Mission Force is the United States military's offensive and defensive cyber warfare unit. It's the cyber equivalent of special forces. Task Force Raider is a military cyber task force. Intelligence that's derived from surveilling voting machine manufacturers and election networks was then being fed directly to the military cyber warfare units in real time. Defend the Department of Defense information networks. The same surveillance infrastructure protecting military networks was also used to watch election infrastructure, and it was the same people doing it, using the same tools, using the same data pipeline, reporting to the same people. The Pythia documentation is included in their communications. They were writing the manual for this weapon as they were deploying it in some pretty sensitive areas. And the DARPA contractor who set this agenda is the same man who later wrote to the same Georgia Tech professor, collect a week's worth of data from the egress point. Now, the email that started this thread, the one that had the boxes that I showed you, goes to prove that this wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. Everything discussed here shows a coordinated, pre-planned, and institutionally and intelligence or authorized operation targeting the voting machine manufacturers, the state of Georgia, and the Biden family's business partners 8 months before the election. And, of course, the Department of Homeland Security and the agencies that were supposed to be securing our elections. Pretty incredible stuff. You can see right here the breakdown of everything that I just went over. And this is from DARPA contractor Christopher Schneck. That is his official DARPA.mil email right there. Let me say thank you very much to G. Fontez. I was arrested at 15 for a misdemeanor amount of pot, and the cops had no probable cause to search. How they did, I got the case dismissed, but they kept my few $100s and my weed. Glad you got off. Bucklebrush Jones, please look at the PBS special about Georgia voting machines vulnerability and Raffensperger admitting it. I put the link in the comments. Okay, I'll go take a look at that. And then also, Eleanor says, Zach, did you read the post by Svetlana Lakova? Once you understand the nature of these coded communications, yes, that was actually the first thing, one of the first things that we went over. Thank you, Eleanor. Yes, we definitely did. Okay, so now, jumping up to the next post. We're going back to October, 13 days before the presidential election. We have the two Georgia Tech professors running their DARPA agency surveillance tool against the voting machine manufacturers here. We had that planning document showing that the voting machine manufacturers were an authorized target of Delphi. Not an accident. It was an operation executing exactly as planned. These are the results that came back. The very first tweet, that Dominion Voting Systems was using an egress point to siphon information out, and they were sending it to another country. It's Dominion Voting. Oh, shit, these look like egress points. DARPA, the DARPA-funded professor who was running this surveillance on these voting machines, knew 2 weeks before the election and chose to do nothing. They know that this was a big deal at the time. They did not expect especially to find it. They definitely knew that this information would be damaging, and if they were to tell the people who ostensibly should know about it, it would most likely lead to the ultimate victory of President Trump and the destruction of this very insecure election system. Because on a properly secured voting system, on a machine like this, there should not be any egress points. The machines are supposed to be air-gapped. I'm sure you remember hearing that they're air-gapped, meaning they're completely isolated from the internet. They're isolated from outside networks. And that means that our election officials have been lying to us since the start. The voting machine companies have been lying to us since the start. There is no air gaps. The machines are not secure in any fashion. Eric Coomer lied. He told the court that the machines had no direct connection to the internet. He said direct. That is a very careful use of phrase because the egress points that his own colleagues found in the network 13 days before the election suggest the machines had something other than a direct connection. Now, before Antonakakis typed, "Oh shit, let me check something," he posted a link to the United States Election Assistance Commission's official government page listing all registered voting equipment manufacturers. What he was doing was cross-referencing what he found in the live network data against the official government registry of voting machine companies. He was confirming the identity of what he was seeing in the data. He confirmed it. And then he typed what he did. Again, not emails of people passively watching foreign adversaries attack American elections. These are the emails of people who just found something unexpected 13 days before the election, and they chose to say nothing. They didn't tell anyone. They kept it quiet, and it has only now just been disclosed, just been publicized. Now, let's take a look at this next tweet. The document that connects all of this directly to the highest levels of the U.S. Senate and John Durham's investigation. Here we go. So 2 United States senators actually already know, and the Durham special counsel team already knew. U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa and U.S. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. They actually uncovered email evidence of Professor Antonokoukis's DARPA-funded work. And what they found in those emails scared them. A DARPA employee referring to the Georgia Tech operation wrote, "Sensitive stuff worth doing." That's the same DARPA employee on the same chain on the same day that the United States Postal Service swing state scanning email was sent September 25th. "I know who to talk to if we find anything. I know who to report it to. I know who to alert. I know who to talk to if we find anything." This is not vague language. This is them discussing exactly what should happen. It's the language of an intelligence operation with a premeditated recipient for whatever was found inside the voting election infrastructure. Who was that person? Well, that answer has never been answered publicly. But John Durham's special counsel investigation in May of 2023, in that final Durham report, he did make a criminal referral to the Department of Defense Inspector General. Inside that referral, he specifically identified one matter involving the execution of a contract between DARPA and the Georgia Institute of Technology. But that's all. We don't know who was actually referred, but we do know that that referral went absolutely nowhere. So the special counsel actually thought that there was a lot more to go after than what was previously admitted to us. And what we know is that whomever was in charge, of course, that went to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice chose not to act on it. But he identified likely what we just discussed in this thread. The DARPA, Georgia Tech, this specific contract, the criminal investigation, Durham had found something significant enough inside that contract to send it to the Department of Defense's own internal investigator. And it was the Department of Defense Inspector General that received that referral. But as we now know, no findings were announced, no charges were filed, no report was released, and the referral itself vanished. So we know that a DARPA planning document targeting voting machine manufacturers was likely found by John Durham and his team. We know that there was active surveillance of Dominion voting network traffic 2 weeks before the election. We know that they identified egress points in voting machine infrastructure. We know that they identified Russian and Iranian command and control confirmed in state and local election networks. We know that there was an Army unit trained on the very surveillance weapon used to do all of this. And the U.S. Army itself was caught inside the Dominion election management system. And that a DARPA agency employee who knew exactly who to talk to if anything was found, that was not someone who was going to publicly admit it. And the special counsel referred whomever it was, the Department of Defense Inspector General received that criminal referral, and then the criminal referral disappeared. So Grassley and Johnson learned about it, and they did raise alarms, but the top prosecutor in America saw enough to make a criminal referral, and we never were told about it. Here is the letter. Dr. Stephanie Tompkins was written by Johnson and Grassley on August 9th of 2023. On April 28th of 2022, we wrote to you requesting records related to DARPA's collaboration with the Georgia Institute of Technology and work related in the 2016 hack of the DNC In September 2022, DARPA sent a response, but failed to provide email communications and subsequently failed to make available any relevant DARPA employees connected to Enhanced Attribution Program for interviews. On May 12th of 2023, Special Counsel John Durham referred 2 matters to the Department of Defense Inspector General and the Defense Intelligence Agency, including 1 matter involving the execution of a contract between DARPA and the Georgia Institute of Tech, and a separate matter involving the irregular conduct in 2016 of 2 former employees of the Department of Defense. As part of our continued oversight of DARPA's taxpayer-funded work with Georgia Tech, we have uncovered an email suggesting DARPA signed off on a project related to the Republican National Committee and DNC networks. In September 25th, 2020 email between Georgia Tech's Dr. Antonakakis, who worked at DARPA's EA program, and other DARPA employees with the subject RNC and DNC-related networks, Antonakakis appears to request DARPA sign off on the research to examine networks related to RNC and DNC. Further, Antonakakis' emails appear to suggest that this examination was to be conducted without the prior knowledge of the RNC or the DNC. He wrote, "Folks, last night I was thinking what we can study. I also realized that we do not know much about the RNC and DNC networks out there. I wrote a job that runs overnight, and I know I have 292 hand-verified at this point networks that are linked with the RNC, DNC, and all local state committee networks around the U.S. An adversary would find those networks interesting for a number of reasons, so I think we should run a reverse Pythia and see what we can see. If you approve this, DARPA employee, I would like from you to think how we will break any bad news to these people. If you cannot think of a clear and clean way to inform them, is the DHS's role or the FBI or the USCC's, perhaps we should let them remain infected. Thanks, Manos." And on that same day, that same DARPA employee responded to Dr. Antonakakis, "Sensitive stuff, but yes, I know who to talk to if we find anything worth doing." And then he replied, "Okay, then I will work these networks and see what we come up with." Johnson and Grassley continued, "This email exchange raises questions about the work of the EA program and government employees responsible for it. We request that you respond to our April 2022 document demands for email communications and interview requests. In addition, please reply to the following questions. Did Dr. Antonakakis conduct any work related to RNC and DNC networks? If yes, did DARPA inform the RNC or the DNC? If not, why not? Was this work conducted as part of the EA program? If not, what program was this work under? Did DARPA employees discuss this work with other agencies? Please list the agency and where those discussions occurred." On September 25th, 2020, a DARPA employee wrote, "I know who we need to talk to." Did the DARPA employee talk to an individual outside DARPA related to the RNC or the DNC? And if so, who and when was it discussed? Please provide all records related to everything we've spoken about. What actions has DARPA taken related to Special Counsel John Durham's December 14th, 2022 referral connected to Georgia Institute of Tech and this irregular conduct? Is DARPA fully cooperating with the Department of Defense Inspector General related to the referral? Has the DoD OIG requested that DARPA provide them with records related to DARPA and Georgia Tech? If so, have they done it? If not, why not? What other networks did DARPA approve Dr. Antonakakis to examine as part of the EA program? Please list them. Please provide all records related to the EA program. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, we're going to go ahead and stop it there because I think we have the gist of everything that happened. However, it's quite clear that there is a much larger set of facts that need to be uncovered here. And I don't know that anybody is looking into this. I don't know what happened with this criminal referral. Certainly, if there was a prosecution, it was never publicized. But this leaves open to interpretation much about the status and security of elections as they exist today. I have said on many occasions, and I think everybody here believes, that the greatest threat over and above a foreign government hacking into our election system, from my perspective, is a hack or manipulation coming from inside the country, coming from a rogue intel agency or a group such as what we see here at Georgia Tech. Anytime we have electronic voting machines that are insecure, black boxes that we can't look at and can't know the safety and security of, and we just need to take the word of some bureaucrat at some agency, nobody is going to feel safe. There is absolutely no way we can ever verify the safety and security of these machines. Certainly not from the companies themselves, and obviously not from any of these intel agencies that are manipulating these things from a variety of different places throughout the country. Who knows what's on them? Who knows who has the ability to command and control them? And I also don't know if Liberty Vote is any better than Dominion voting systems. Allegedly, they said that they were going to be giving over all of their code and their machines to somebody else. But considering the fact that Tulsi Gabbard and the DNI have their hands on those two Dominion voting system machines from Puerto Rico, there's a strong possibility that the findings from this, from John Durham, and all of the information that's being revealed, there's a strong possibility that these questions and more are currently being investigated and remedied by the Director of National Intelligence. And that is really the only thing that we can do. Thank you again to Jay for the cookie. Thank you to L.A. Martinez. Code for 8647 written in the sand. Yep. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Lynn17, thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. 123SKG. I remember Comey on his book tour and how smug he was. His words will come back to haunt him. I agree with you. Thank you to Filter Dog, bringing the sauce. Thank you to Wonderworld, TGIF. Thank you to Sean Joe for the can. Thank you to Delia, also, Fort Huachuca. Thank you to Filter Dog. But there is no evidence of election fraud. Thank you to Sean Joe for 2 cookies. And Filter Dog, I think this is the nail in the coffin. I certainly hope it's the nail in the coffin. I mean, I don't know how much more blatant you can get. The call is coming from inside the building. There is no way you are ever going to convince me that electronic voting machines of any kind are safe or secure. The only thing that's going to satisfy me, and I think probably everybody watching, as long as your heart's in the right place, is paper ballots. Paper ballots are the only thing that will ever be safe and secure. All right, now, let's go ahead and jump over to that video coming from Riverside County. Patrick Byrne had shared this press conference. We're only going to watch a portion of the press conference. But Sheriff Chad Bianco had this press conference earlier today, and he is directly accusing the Attorney General of California of trying to intimidate Riverside County and the Sheriff's Office into accepting the 2025 Proposition 50 election. Here's the problem. The Riverside County ballot totals were 45,896 more ballots than the number of people who could cast those ballots. There are an excess of ballots in Riverside County, and there's no explanation as to why there are so many more ballots than eligible adults to cast a ballot. So Chad Bianco actually got a subpoena for these ballots, and apparently he's been investigating this himself. Let's hear exactly what he has to say about this entire situation.
This investigation is very...
All right, yes, and I see Kev, I'm not a fan of Bianco either, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. So if his investigation brings about proof of some type of ballot or election fraud in California, I think we should celebrate the win.
Registrar of Voters maintain handwritten logs of the total number of ballots coming into the ROV. An audit of those logs received from the Riverside County Registrar of Voters allegedly shows 611,428 ballots were cast. but 657,322 votes were reported and certified to the Secretary of State. That is a difference of 45,896 votes. The response from the Registrar of Voters was that it did not rely on logs and that it is a machine count that reflects a much smaller deviation that he chalks up to acceptable human error. I hope we can all agree.
Human error? 45,000 plus ballots? Good God, that's not a human error.
There is no acceptable error, small or large, in our elections, let alone a 45,000 vote difference. Our investigation will determine the validity of that alleged discrepancy, and if found true, we will determine the cause. We will do that by physically counting the ballots. This is not a recount to determine how many votes were for or against Prop 50. Several weeks ago, I was contacted by a representative of Attorney General Bonta and asked to halt this investigation until after March 6th. No reason was provided, and there is no legal justification for the Attorney General to stop a lawful investigation. As a side, I also had intimate knowledge of the significance of that date. On February 26th, and again on March 4th, my office received a letter from AG Bonta directing a halt to this investigation. Yesterday, a Riverside Superior...
That's certainly notable that the Attorney General of California is putting pressure on a county sheriff to stop investigating the presence of an excess of 45,000 ballots. I think you know why that is.
Superior Court judge issued an order to appoint a special master to resume counting the ballots. Under direction of the court and the court's jurisdiction over all evidence, this investigation will continue despite AG Bonta's attempts to stop it. AG Bonta is part of the executive branch of this state. Under the separation of...
All right, so our friends at Unite for Freedom actually did an investigation on this. They said, we commend the Riverside County Sheriff for addressing the election concerns posed by his citizens. In the 2024 election in Riverside County, Unite for Freedom analysts discovered a 9,536 vote-to-voter discrepancy, as well as 473,056 unique voters with voting violations. That's a 50% total error rate in the election. We welcome Sheriff Bianco, AG Rob Bonta, and Secretary of State Shirley Weber to call us if you want assistance in investigating and solving the problems in your election. Good Lord. All right, so in Riverside County alone, 2024, they had 10,766 illegal duplicate registrations. They had 3,000 registrants with multiple votes in the same election. There were 428,000 voted prior to the new registration date. There was 986 with a questionable inactive status, 59 who voted while they were inactive, 250,000 backdated registrations, 14,000 who were registered on January 1st, 109,000 that were invalid or illogical registration dates, 16,000 that were illegal or invalid registration changes, 1,000 that were age discrepancy registrants, and then 4,400 that were registrants with questionable addresses. Now, were the votes counted from eligible voters as required by the U.S. Constitution? And you can see here that of those illegal duplicate registrations, there were 5,823, 2,200 of the multiple votes, 330,000 that voted prior to their new registration date, 984 voted with questionable inactive status, 136,000 that voted with backdated registrations. The list goes on. But all in all, as stated, you have a 50% error rate in just Riverside County, California. That is absolutely insane. So anyways, thank you once again to Unite for Freedom for what you're doing. And if Sheriff Chad Bianco wants to get this investigation wrapped up real quick, He'll talk to the people at Unite for Freedom. Yeah, nothing to see here. Oh, good God. Absolutely insane that this is the world we live in. Elections in California are such a joke. I mean, they're obviously a joke everywhere, but they are particularly egregious in California. Jeez, oh, Pete's. All right, you guys. Real quickly, before we continue, I have a brief message from my friends over here on Rumble. You guys know banks are not your friends. They can freeze your accounts. They can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your own money. They can do it anytime they want, middle of the night, middle of the day, as you're going to sleep. Banks do not protect you. They control you, and that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing the Rumble Wallet. It's a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With the Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You also can own Tether Gold. That is real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars. Each one is fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, verifiable by purity and weight. It's not paper gold. It's not an IOU. It is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. And you can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can also be redeemed for physical gold. Very powerful. So when you support content creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using that Rumble wallet. It's peer-to-peer, totally outside the banking system. There's no permissions or middlemen or cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. You can go to wallet.rumble.com, use the App Store on your phone, or use that QR code that you see on screen right there. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so jumping to the next story, we have a response from Waleed Fariz. Waleed Fariz was the gentleman that we discussed yesterday who just found out that he also was targeted by one Kevin Kleinsmith. Kevin Kleinsmith, the still practicing attorney out of Washington, D.C., the man who lied to the FISA court to obtain warrants on Carter Page and Waleed Fariz. Now, Fariz was electronically monitored for a 12-month period from 2017 to 2018. And the monitoring was part of the Russia collusion probe of Robert Mueller. As in Carter Page's case, the FBI withheld evidence that exonerated Waleed Fariz from the court so that they could secure their surveillance authorization. And this is proof. We have the evidence. It's from FBI's recently declassified own documents. Now, Fariz was asked about this by Real Clear Investigations. He said, "I had no idea any of this was happening. He just found out about it the other day. This is shocking because they told my lawyer I was only a witness and they just needed some information. But these were huge abuses that I can just now see." And he said he tends to sue the FBI and the Justice Department for damages. Good. So who is Waleed Fariz? He's a 68-year-old Lebanese-American scholar. And prosecutors and case agents grilled him for months. They questioned his employer. They went after his bank records. He said he lost his job at a university. He lost his total livelihood. Even his bank accounts and credit cards were taken away because Wells Fargo canceled them because of the attention he was receiving from the federal government. He said, "It was like a disaster for me financially and physically. I also lost my Fox News contract. Previously, he was an expert on counterterrorism and the Middle East, which he had had that contract since 2007. Now, Fariz was never hired by the Trump administration, and he had been expected to land a pretty high-level foreign policy decision. He said they scared the agencies away from me, so I would have problems with obtaining a security clearance. Now, investigators, when they looked at Fariz and everything about him, they could find nothing criminal during that probe. The lead case agent concluded that he was honest, that he had not hidden anything, but Mueller's team continued to secretly spy on him without providing the FISA court and any of the exculpatory evidence that they had determined as they were surveilling him. If they had done that, that would have cleared him, and it's important because it was required by law that they hand that information over. The agent told investigators in a separate 2020 internal FBI review, there are no corroborating facts that tied Crosswind, which was the code name for Ferry's case, to certain facts that we thought were originally true. He also added that nothing they collected from Ferry's communications under FISA warrants, including phone messages and emails, aided the investigation other than to prove that the target was being totally honest with investigators. But the FBI continued to monitor him as part of the FARA investigation. He was never charged, never found to be in violation. There was a let's get him attitude among prosecutors on Mueller's team, the agent who had come forward and spoken said. There was obviously an FBI and DOJ and Mueller team anti-Trump bias, and they even tacked up negative cartoons of the president on the walls of their office. That FBI agent's name is currently redacted, and those documents, as we now know them, were released by Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley. He also added there was nothing confirming that Ferries had received a large sum of money, no payments, nothing confirming he had a meeting in another country for the purposes of the initial allegation that they used. And when the Mueller team applied for the fourth and final warrant to secretly surveil Ferries in 2018, the agent argued that the FISA court needed to be alerted to hot new information that had changed our understanding of our initial analysis that Ferries was a foreign agent. He suggested several corrections, but an FBI lawyer rebuffed him. I pointed out these specific corrections to the application in numerous instances throughout the FISA process. I sent these edits to Kevin Kleinsmith, who said, we can't send this to the DOJ. You know, Kevin Kleinsmith, he was a senior FBI attorney. He had been assigned to the Mueller team, and he actually agreed that the corrections were unnecessary. It wouldn't be the first time. Kevin Kleinsmith had taken exculpatory information and manipulated it, not presenting it to the court. He's the same guy who pled guilty for fabricating that email about Carter Page, making it look like he was a Russian spy rather than being an asset for the government. And yet Kevin Kleinsmith still is practicing law in Washington, D.C. You know, I saw somebody in the chat ask if judges have been arrested yet. In order for a judge to be arrested, we have to have a articulatable crime, and we have to have an indictment against them. I mean, Kevin Kleinsmith committed a crime. He's still out there walking around. You guys, I got to let Cisco outside. So give me just a second, and I'll be right back. Okay.
Good morning. I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation of Secretary Clinton. What I want to do is tell you what we're recommending. But first, let me tell you what we found. 110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains were top secret, 36 of those chains secret, and 8 contained confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
Everything I did was permitted. There was no law, no regulation.
Secretary Clinton should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email.
None of these emails should have been on any kind of unclassified system, not even Gmail.
Well, first of all, nothing was marked classified.
To the contrary.
Nothing was marked classified.
There is evidence of
Nothing was marked classified.
Now let me tell you what we found.
Oh my gosh.
110 emails.
It was not the best choice.
52 email chains.
It was a mistake.
Have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains were top
It
secret.
wasn't the best choice.
36 of those chains
I said it was a mistake.
and 8 contained confidential information.
What difference at this point does it
With
make?
respect to our recommendation, this is going to be an unusual statement in at least a couple of ways. Although there is evidence, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. What difference at this point does it make? 110 emails.
It wasn't the best choice.
52 email chains.
I made a mistake.
Have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains were top
It was not a
secret.
good choice.
36 of those chains
I said it
investigation.
What difference at this point does it make?
Did I make it back just in time? I was just starting to replay. All right, I still got that freaking Norton shit going on. All right. So there is no way we're going to get through everything that I wanted to talk about today. But I thought that this was certainly interesting. The female Secret Service agent, Sabrado says, do you prefer Rumble Wallet over Cash App for donations now that it's available? Well, I mean, I don't know that I prefer it. It's whatever convenient for you guys. Cash App, Rumble Wallet, whatever it is, either one, that's good. Hold on. I think that I might have a notification on Cash App. Maybe not. Sabrado, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I thanked Elaine. That was at the beginning of the month. Thank you. She says, thank you for all you do. Yes, either one is good. It's whatever is good for you guys. Some people are intimidated by crypto, whatever. But if you are a crypto person, you want to send me Bitcoin, by all means, go ahead and do it on Rumble Wallet. Okay, so the single Secret Service agent, she was a female in Butler. She was the one who was supposed to secure the roof of the AGR building. That is the very location that the supposed Thomas Crooks climbed up on to send a series of rounds downwind at President Trump. She has just been suspended because Mio Perez, that's her name, she apparently not only failed to secure the roof at Butler in 2024, she also covered up the fact that she was married to a foreign national. She was married to a person from Brazil, a woman from Brazil in April of 2025. And as a Secret Service agent, this is something that you're supposed to clear with the Secret Service. She never told anyone about this. The Secret Service did not learn about it until January of this year. Now, this is a person who is not just born in a foreign country. This is a person who is in the United States of America illegally. This woman came to the U.S. on a tourist visa, overstayed her visa, and married an American Secret Service agent. So this makes the third time that Ms. Perez has been suspended in the last year and a half. Despite the ongoing congressional investigations and internal Secret Service review of her role in Butler failures, Perez quietly married a Brazilian foreign national last April without notifying the agency, according to a copy of her marriage certificate located at the Brevard Public Records website. And according to sources familiar with the timing of when she informed the agency of her marriage. Upon learning of the marriage, the agency immediately suspended her and issued an internal do not admit notice. This is a big deal, okay? Like, how many times are we going to see this kind of shit happen? All right, now, there has been a significant uptick in information related to fraud taking place in California. We had James O'Keefe's investigation showing the cash for signatures. Cam Higbee went out and did his own investigation, confirmed the same thing. Also, Muckraker went out and did a 20-minute or so video looking into this. They actually got inside the corporate headquarters of the very organization that was organizing the signatures. Now, what's particularly notable about Muckraker's investigation is that there was a foreign national who had previously gotten in trouble for doing this exact same thing in Switzerland. He's an African national, And he and another woman from Ghana were running this organization. They would pay people a significant amount of money, send them out. Those people would then pay others for their signatures. And Muckraker asked them about the possibility of paying people for the signatures. And they were basically like, you can do it, but we don't want to know about it. So this investigation was particularly damning, and multiple people are caught on camera and then are just completely incredulous about the fact that they're breaking laws. Like they said, you know, you are breaking federal laws. And they were like, we don't care. We don't care. Nothing is going to happen. Nothing will happen to us. Just give me the signatures. If you don't have signatures, then you can just get out of here. So the petitioners told the undercover journalists at Muckraker they're paid between $7 to $10 per signature. Some of them are earning up to $1,000 a day. And this signature harvesting organization is being directed by California NGOs to sign these people up. They are actually encouraging fake names, fake addresses. When they speak to homeless people, they tell them, I don't care what name you write. The only thing that I care is that you write an address that would be in Los Angeles County, but it doesn't even have to be a real house. It just has to be an address that looks like it's here in Los Angeles County. So Cam Higby's investigation is very similar to that. But here's the good news. That U.S. Attorney Bill Laetrile, who I told you would be responsible for investigating and prosecuting these people, he's paying attention to every single one of these things. And more importantly, so you need to follow Muckraker and you need to follow Cam Higby to watch their reports as well. We'll see a clip from Cam's here. But when Cam goes, each one of these investigations takes a look at the same scam, but people are using slightly different incentives to get these signatures from homeless people. But it's always homeless people and junkies, essentially. So right here, you get a free gift or $5 if you sign my left-wing ballot initiatives. At Muckraker, they were even told you can lie to the people that you're getting to sign up. Tell them it's whatever they need to hear to get that signature, because all they care about is the name on the line.
So what's the issue? We get a gift too. It's for provide permanent funding for schools and healthcare. You have different ones. This is for Uber, accident victims, so they get medical expenses. Most of them is health and medical.
So if I sign this, I can help people.
If you sign this clip right here, you get a free gift or you could get $5. It's on you.
Free gift, $5? Oh,
I think you could get a free gift or $5. On you, you get a.
What organization is this?
What do you mean? This is Pivotal Politics.
Oh, it's a nonprofits?
Oh, it's from the state. Really like.
Oh, it's from the
6-7 states that do that. It's from the same company.
Oh, this is California funded?
Okay. So, Cam Higby actually had a conversation with the California Secretary of State. So Bill Laetrile responded to James O'Keefe. The state's Attorney General's office and Secretary of State both responded to all of the investigations. And Cam Higby actually spoke on the phone with the California Secretary of State. They want his evidence, and they are currently starting an investigation. Also, at least one person, Nick Shirley has revealed, has already been arrested from the video that he did last week. One of those fraudsters that he exposed was arrested shortly after the video came out. So, although many people are black-pilled and saying none of this will ever matter, nobody will ever be arrested, it appears that we have hit a critical mass. And, of course, I am reserving ultimate judgment until I see the investigations, but I have closely been watching the efforts of Bill Laetrile at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he is 100% on board with prosecuting each and every one of these scammers that they can get enough evidence on. So I saw CBS was covering this, yes. let me show you what I said about CBS. Hello, fellow citizen journalists. I, too, am exposing fraud. Yeah, CBS did their own investigation. They just did exactly what Nick Shirley did. They put out this very modern TikTok expose showing 89 hospice companies at one Los Angeles building. And, it's funny to me because they suddenly have to compete against citizen journalists. And only as a result of them being shown up are they doing their job. Are they even going out there and looking into this? They never cared about it before. All of this was available for years. Okay, all they had to do was investigate. And so now they're going ahead and doing it. So also, yesterday in Los Angeles, Bill Asaley put together an investigation along with the FBI, and he says this is just the tip of the iceberg, but this is one aspect of the fraud that we currently just started taking down. Apparently, there was a $17 million mortgage fraud scheme that was going on. 9 people were arrested. 2 foreign nationals out of those 9 were charged. And essentially, they were targeting elderly homeowners and stealing millions of dollars.
An early morning FBI fraud takedown.
Oh, this is the other thing. The video that CBS News did on this had like less than 20,000 views on YouTube. Okay, Nick Shirley's video got millions, okay? CBS News had, in all of their reach, they had like 20,000 views on their expose.
Across LA County. Fox 11, the only TV crew there, as federal agents and police storm a North Hollywood home, zeroing in on a man they say is tied to a sprawling mortgage fraud scheme.
It's a complex fraud scheme in which people are using private citizens' homes to leverage that to steal money.
Moments later, the suspect walks out barefoot and in pajamas, placed in handcuffs. Parked outside, high-end cars, a Range Rover and Lexus, the home itself appearing freshly remodeled. This image from Apple Maps compared to how it looked Thursday morning.
They live a very elaborate lifestyle based on the ill-gotten gains of this type of fraud.
This arrest related to about 10 others happening simultaneously across LA County and as far away as Florida and Canada.
This organized crime network has their minions, so to speak, on the lending side and the theft side of it.
Okay, so just looking at the names, Shakrian, Sarkeesian, I think these are, hold on. Sarkeesian. What ethnicity is that? That is Armenian. Okay, so Dr. Oz had previously said that there was like Armenian gangsters that were operating here. So this looks like part of the Armenian mob right there. Now, right here also, jumping over to Minnesota, we just had a couple of additional...
Able to pay back any of the money? Mohammed worked as a consultant at Feeding Our Future for Executive Director Amy.
We had a couple of more guilty pleas in the Feeding Our Future scam. These people were taking kickbacks.
Lobbied for elected officials.
They were taking kickbacks and they were looping in bureaucrats.
She collected kickbacks, recruited other fraudsters, laundered money, and shamelessly lobbied for elected officials to help continue the flow of money. Ikram, do you have anything to say? Ikram Muhammad, one of the most notorious Feeding Our Future fraud defendants, pleaded guilty today. She's responsible for causing $14.7 million taxpayer dollars being stolen. Are you going to be able to pay back any of the money? Muhammad worked as a consultant at Feeding Our Future for Executive Director Amy Bach, cheering on Bach's frivolous lawsuit claiming racism if anyone tried to stop them.
The sponsor actually took the initiative to sue. Good for her. I love it.
That's her voice on a secret recording she made when she and a group of fellow fraudsters got a meeting with Attorney General Keith Ellison. It was a month before the criminal case was made public, and Muhammad tried fooling Ellison into stopping those who had cut off the flow of money.
This has been going up for some time.
What the heck, man? Who's minding the store?
As part of her plea.
Certainly not the state of Minnesota. Oh, Trisha, you posted a rant. The only reason I share this is because something similar happened to me. I watch it on repeat till tears are streaming. Okay, I will pull this up. Also, oh, and Sabrado, I read that one already. Okay.
Deal. Federal prosecutors agreed not to charge Mohammed in any other case they're investigating, and that's kind of a big deal.
Ikram, does this mean you won't be?
That's a huge deal because you know she's involved in more than just defeating our future, but she turned state's evidence, so they got to do what they got to do.
Charged in the bribe case?
She should be deported, though.
Previously, prosecutors said Mohammed played a key role collecting the money that was used to try to bribe a juror in the first Feeding Our Future trial.
There it is. She's also the one who skimmed $80,000 off the top of that bribe before delivering it.
But Mohammed's guilty plea is a big deal because she was charged along with family members. She recruited her husband, mother, sister, and brothers to run fake meal sites and steal money with her. Now, instead of going to trial in April, they're pleading guilty as well. One exception, Mohammed's brother, Gandhi Mohammed. In court, he turned down a plea deal and said that he will take his case to a jury.
Because his IQ is obviously less than 70. You can't take a plea deal when every other person in your family has already pled guilty and admitted to the crimes they've committed. Good God. All right. Very briefly, President Trump has been vindicated in yet another instance. Of course, the lawsuit by New York State Attorney General Letitia James, the civil fraud and political persecution lawsuit against him, where they claimed he overvalued his Mar-a-Lago property. They estimated its worth at only $18 million. Well, in a recent article by Forbes Billionaires List, they have just placed a valuation at Mar-a-Lago of $560 million, which is up $370 million from the year before when Letitia James claimed that it was only worth much, much less. And of course, Mar-a-Lago, it continues to increase in value as President Trump leads the country. All right. Now, do you guys remember an illegal alien that was working on the New York City Council? He was a Venezuelan criminal illegal alien who was charged with assault, and when he assaulted someone, it was determined that he was not here illegally. Well, an immigration judge has just ordered that he be deported because he is, of course, a criminal, and Rafael Andre Rubio Borquez, 53 years old, was not here legally. So he was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in January, and federal officials revealed that he overstayed a tourist visa after he entered in 2017. Allegedly, Zoran Mamdani is livid that one of his employees are going to be deported by ICE and DHS, but it doesn't matter. He's leaving no matter what Zoran Mamdani says. So GTFO. We also have an interesting story on two anti-ICE activists who have just been convicted of felony stalking and terrorizing the family of a federal agent. They apparently live streamed their stalking activities from outside the home of this agent and his family. These two ICE activists have just been convicted in this politically motivated harassment campaign against a federal immigration officer. They broadcast his home and home address, as well as he and his family, on social media. This jury on March 2nd found Ashley Brown of Colorado, 38-year-old female, and Cynthia Ray Goza of California, also 38, guilty after they tracked an ICE deportation officer from a federal building in Los Angeles straight to his home. They live streamed their pursuit, and they doxed him online to a mob of similarly disturbed individuals. According to trial evidence, the two women dressed in black and wearing face coverings followed this officer on August 28th, 2025, as he headed home to his family, where he had planned a surprise outing for his young sons. Instead, what happened was far more sinister. One of these women was from the Inland Empire, the other from Colorado. The jury has found them guilty of doxing this officer and stalking him. According to the evidence, while they were dressed in black, concealing their own faces, they followed him home, and the defendants live streamed on their Instagram accounts the pursuit of this victim and provided directions as they followed him home so that other people could find him as well. They encouraged their viewers to share the live stream. Their Instagram accounts were probably taken down, I would imagine. Once they got there, they shouted to bystanders while live streaming on Instagram saying, "Neighbor is ICE. La Migra lives here. ICE lives on your street. You should know." They also threatened to pop the victim. Both the victim's wife and a concerned neighbor called 911. Brown then publicly disclosed on Instagram an address approximately 100 feet from the victim's home and told viewers, "Come on down." Now, the victim's wife, who the defendants targeted with racial slurs, and children witnessed the incident and suffered emotional distress. The increased traffic from onlookers in the ensuing weeks caused the victim and his family to relocate to a different county. The forced move significantly disrupted the education of the victim's children. The victim's 3-year-old son has a disability. He lost several social and health care benefits that were tied to his former county. The U.S. District Judge scheduled a June 8th sentencing. Raygoza and Brown both face up to 5 years in federal prison. The jury found Raygoza and Brown not guilty of 1 count of conspiracy to publicly disclose the personal information of a federal agent. How? But the jury also acquitted Samaine Sandra Carmona, 25, of Panorama City, of both charges she faced, conspiracy and stalking. "Stalking and intimidation of our personnel and their families crossed a line," said the director of the ICE office. "This verdict sends a clear message that such criminal behavior will not be tolerated. We remain committed to protecting our officers and ensuring their safety both on and off duty. Justice has been served against 2 agitators who stalked a federal employee, live streamed it on social media, and traumatized the victim and his family," U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley said. "Our Constitution protects peaceful protest, not political violence and unlawful intimidation." All right, and a Democrat representative's staffer has apparently been posing as a lawyer to sneak into ICE facilities and smuggle phones into a Texas facility so that the ICE detainees can then use those phones to call people on the outside. Now, this is actually a follow-up to a story that we've covered in the past, but I figured after the first time they were exposed for doing this, posing as lawyers, that they would have had a stop put to it. This is a staffer for Representative Veronica Escobar, Democrat of Texas. This individual has lied about being an attorney at least 11 times. And the phones that were smuggled in could potentially have been used to contact members of the cartel or other criminal networks. The available evidence demonstrates your staffer, a senior caseworker named Benito Torres, misrepresented himself as counsel for detainees in ICE custody, violated clear detention standards and security protocols prohibiting the use of cell phones inside ICE facilities, improperly met with multiple detainees, and falsely claimed to ICE personnel such use had been approved by the agency. As a result of bringing a cell phone into Camp East Montana facility contrary to facility visitation policy, Mr. Torres' representation that he is a licensed attorney to gain access, his improper meetings with groups of detainees, and his assertion to ICE personnel about the origins of his visit, Mr. Torres is hereby prohibited from accessing any ICE facility. He ought to have some charges brought against him. An image of a sign-in log shows Torres allegedly claimed to be a lawyer. That's also a crime as well, isn't it? And he did this on multiple occasions. He was confronted by a facility administrator at one visit and admitted that he was not an attorney and was visiting a private person. The confrontation happened after officials in the facility became aware of someone passing a phone to multiple detainees. Lyons has requested that Escobar provide written responses to several questions, including whether he was employed by the legislator on the dates that he visited the ICE facility. He was. I've already checked. Is he a licensed attorney? He's not. We know that for a fact. And if Veronica Escobar was aware of what he was doing. Lyons also asked Escobar if she condones such behavior. I'm sure she does. In a statement to Fox, Escobar described Torres as a dedicated public servant, an Army veteran, and that the allegations were unfounded. They're not. It is worth noting that ICE has refused to respond to multiple letters I've sent about Camp East Montana regarding deaths, including a homicide, outbreaks of diseases, including COVID-19, measles and tuberculosis, waste, fraud, and abuse, a lack of legal representation or medical care, and so much more. This administration has a history of engaging in intimidation tactics against members of Congress. No. That's such bullshit. All right. Oh, okay. Couple of stories about Jeffrey Epstein, and I think we'll go ahead and close it out. First of all, it would appear that Tom Barrack is now the first member of President Trump's current administration to speak out about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He was recently approached by Drop Site News at an event and was asked about it. Now, just in case you don't remember, Tom Barrack was the one who sent Jeffrey Epstein this email on March 9th, 2016. I've shown it to you before. He wrote, of course, this is after Jeffrey Epstein was a sex offender. He wrote, "Send photos of you and child. Make me smile." Now, there's a couple of different ways you can interpret this email. Of course, at the time, I think it was reasonable to assume that he might be requesting a picture of Jeffrey Epstein and one of the children that maybe he was trafficking. However, we now know that Jeffrey Epstein spoke to multiple people about the new baby that he had fathered. So I'm going to give Tom Barrack at least a 50% benefit of the doubt that perhaps he might be talking about Jeffrey Epstein's new son. But that is a generous consideration, okay? So let's take a listen to Tom Barrack being asked about his relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. Once it gets to a certain point, he scrams. He does not want to answer.
I just wanted to ask you about what I read in the Epstein files about your association with him. Why did you introduce him to Teal and Vitaly Churkin? What were your dealings with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I didn't introduce him to those people, but all of us dealt with Jeffrey Epstein in the 80s as a business person.
Okay, now, pause right there. He says, oh, yeah, we all dealt with Jeffrey Epstein in the 80s, as if he's trying to silo the conditions of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, it was 40 plus years ago. It was in the 1980s. In the 1980s. Listen to why he says that everyone wanted to be in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit.
It was bigger than life. It was a 30-year story of this that I think most of us actually thought that he had built his wealth and his prowess over his international relations with Israel.
Bum, 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 bum. It was Jeffrey Epstein's international relations with Israel, his foreign ties with Israel, his intelligence ties with Israel.
That's always what kind of the backdrop was. I didn't see the rest of it later in the 2015.
In the files that I read, you're having dealings with him after he became a convicted sex offender. Why?
Dealings meaning he was emailing me, asking me for access to the president or a transaction. I was running a New York Stock Exchange company. He'd try and get a hold of me for relevant information. That was it.
But you met with him, and you met with Vitaly Churkin, you met with Peter Thiel and Epstein.
Oh, not going to answer that one. Not going to answer the obvious questions that you're going to be asked. Good God. Anyways, I think that Tom Barrack probably should answer those questions. All right. Now, it may not be necessary, though. Take a listen to this. Chinese lawyer Victor Gao hints that China may now be in possession of the entire unredacted Epstein files. He says now is the right moment to fully expose the details of Jeffrey Epstein's activities and everyone involved with him. Does China have the files? Eventually, everything needs to come out in the sun. Let's wait. I'd like to remind you guys that the FBI recently admitted that somebody hacked into the FBI and had access to all of the unredacted files. Now, all is subjective because according to the DOJ, all of the files were not in one specific location. We do know that the SDNY had hidden a large portion of the files. I don't even believe that everything we've been given thus far constitutes everything. Certainly, there's a lot of security video. There are obviously pictures that they're not going to release because those have CSAM in them. But let's take a listen to Chinese lawyer Victor Gao.
dictate to the United States or even to order around how the US troops need to be deployed. And allow me to make one point. I think it is right now the high time to expunge the evil as represented by Jeffrey Epstein and whoever who is with him. Now, this is a very important point. I do not want to go into further details. I think the evil as represented by Jeffrey Epstein need to be fully expunged in the world, including in the relations between Israel and the United States.
Does China have the files?
Well, eventually everything needs to come out to the sun. Let's wait.
Okay. I like that kind of strategic.
Yeah, that's a non-answer. Seems to suggest that, yes, they actually do. All right. We'll go ahead and close it out right there, guys. Before we do, I have one final message from our friends on Rumble, and then we'll go through the last of the donations. You guys, if you haven't tried 1775 coffee yet, there is still an opportunity. They have some of those starter kits for you to try. You're going to get their bold dark roast, their smooth medium roast, and their vitality mushroom coffee that gives you clean energy and laser focus without the crash. It's made from the highest quality beans, single origin, small batch, toxin, and mold free. You're also going to get their gold spoon clip, a strong frother, and a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for just 99 bucks. This is for every person who's been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wonder if it's actually worth it. It truly is, and to find out for yourself, go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab one of those starter kits before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Thank you very much to the folks at Rumble, and thank you very much to our friends over here on Pilled. Let me see. Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies. Filter Dog, thank you for a cookie. I think that's the nail in the coffin. And then Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie as well. And that will be it over here. All right. So now, don't forget, China is not a monolith. There are factions within factions and sources of power that are not necessarily aligned with Xi or other aspects of the government. It's very similar to what we have here in the United States. That's government for you. You know, people think that the U.S. government, every single agency, everything is aligned, but it's not. If it was, then we wouldn't have the problems that we have currently today with the deep state still being embedded. China has its own deep state. Israel has its own deep state. Russia has its own deep state. There are always these infighting and operations to try to clear things out, take them out. It's the same no matter where you go. Evil is inherent in the hearts of men, and evil men seek out positions of power so that they can subject you to their satanic whims. So continue to stay frosty, my friends. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you all. G. Fontes says, I'm very curious if President Trump has filled his administration with very capable people, but this time he has leverage that commands their loyalty as long as it's needed. Oh, I think that's an excellent assertion right there. I believe that to be the case. I think that, you know, like we said in his first administration, I mean, President Trump was not a politician. He comes into Washington, D.C. There was essentially a power sharing agreement that required him to take on Mike Pence as his VP. The same was true of all of these people in his administration. As President Trump made his way through that first 4 years, I think that he really got to know the ins and outs of Washington politics, how dirty and disgusting so many people were. And in this second time around, he spent 4 years developing the plan of who was going to be those most loyal and connected people surrounding him. And then also, who would he be able to use that were part of that same deep state network? Because unfortunately, there are just so many positions to fill in the U.S. government. I don't think it's possible to operate a bureaucracy of this size without having people in it that are already compromised. That's just the way that it is. All right, you guys, thank you for being here. Good luck. God bless. I hope you all have a great night. I'm going to go ahead and pass out these gold pills. And there we go. All right. Have a good night, and I will see you guys on the next one. You know what? I got a show that's coming out tomorrow at 5 p.m., so keep your eyes open. Peace.